Donald Trump cruising right along. But is there any way the Republican Party can dump Trump? Well, trust me, there's a lot of closed-door meetings on that very subject. But can the establishment really close the door on a Trump nomination? And we're starting to see Hillary Clinton's strategy shaping up. She's getting all warm and fuzzy while the Donald continues to slash and burn. Can she kill his candidacy with kindness, or is she misreading this population come this season? Then we look at where politics and the law intersect. Both Trump and Hillary facing legal issues of their own. He's got Trump University, the lawsuit. Hillary, she's got the email investigation. Her panel of attorneys, they'll hash it all out. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this Wednesday night. And we start with Donald Trump. The better he does, the more headaches he causes for establishment Republicans. Trump, he won 7 states last night. Ted Cruz took 3. Rubio just 1. Politico calling Super Tuesday the day the Republican Party ruptured. Their word, saying growing resistance to a dominating Trump could splinter the GOP beyond repair. Politico also getting into how the top Republicans in Congress, including the House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, they're trying to figure out how to deal with the Donald, saying in part, quote, they have an almost impossible political task as the real estate mogul steamrolls to the nomination, strategically distancing themselves from the Republican standard bearer, keeping a close watch on their party's brand, all the while trying to keep Congress in GOP hands come November. So will the GOP, as they say, have to burn down the village to save it? Let's bring in our panel tonight. Kostas Panagopoulos, I said it right. He is professor of political science and director of the Center for Electoral Politics and Democracy at Fordham University. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Steve Rothman, former Democratic congressman from New Jersey. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. You know, you got a book, A Citizen's Guide to U.S. Elections, and I know Karen, our fantastic producer, was talking. You said you may have had to rewrite it.
Yeah,
if you saw what was going on this season.
The book was literally just published a couple of months ago, and now we just got to toss it out the window and start fresh, start writing from scratch. It doesn't even include the words Trump, Bernie Sanders, because it was written a few months ago. But anyway, it's been an exciting election cycle so far, to be sure.
It's March. It's March.
That's right.
Now, I was talking to some folks before. Some people drew up the analogy of Goldwater as maybe a parallel, but Goldwater represented a portion of the Republican electorate that year. It wasn't a big enough slice, but he was a hardline conservative. No one can define Trump. And I think the Republican Party in the box that they've put themselves in here. I mean, you got Mitt Romney delivering a speech tonight where he's trying to, in effect, speak for the party fathers, saying this is not the party of Lincoln and Reagan. The ship sailed. Either they waited too long or they're misreading the population. I don't know who they're speaking to. And if you're Paul Ryan tonight or you're Mitch McConnell, are you better holding your nose and wrapping your arms around Trump, or trying to come up with some cockamamie way, as John Kasich says, is trying to broker a convention? What are their options on the table?
Well, I think the Republican Party is in flux. That's very clear. It's been in flux for many years, and they haven't wanted to really understand that or figure out how to campaign to that new and evolving electorate. Just like the country's shifting, the party's shifting, and I don't think the party leaders are really in command of what's going on within the party. I think you can look at the Trump candidacy, and it has some very telling signals. First of all, his appeal is very much across the board, across all kinds of demographic groups, etc. There's tremendous support for his candidacy, but beyond that, I think that you can pinpoint the stereotypic Trump supporter, and that is someone who's angry and frustrated and has given up on the standard options for how to get things done in politics in America. And that is partly a new electorate that Trump is generating for the Republican Party, but it's changing, and he's bringing those people in. And the claim he made last night about growing the party to incorporate those people is also going to fundamentally, first of all, I think it's true, and secondly, I think it's going to fundamentally change the Republican Party even further if they stay involved.
You know, Congressman, I'll use a sports analogy. Sometimes when teams are 8-8 or they're hovering around 500, they have that difficult decision to make, which is, do I mortgage my future and try and get that premium free agent, or make that trade here where I'll give up the farm but get that guy who's got to maybe in the last year of his contract because I'm going to try and go for the ring? Or do I basically say, this ain't working. I'm going to tear the whole thing down. I'm going to get as many draft picks as I can or younger players and build up till I'm ready. It seems to me historically Republicans have been better at Democrats at saying, you know what, I'm going to write this one off. We're not going to win this, but we're going to redefine who we are, and maybe we're going to go into hibernation for a cycle or two, but we'll be better off on the other side of it. It seems that they're at that choice right now, which is, you know what, we're going to get there before the Democrats too in terms of eviscerating Trump. Maybe it'll cost us in November, certainly the White House, and maybe even more than that. But you know what? We'll be damned if this guy's going to define us and basically set us back for the next 15, 20 years. You worked with a bunch of these guys, Paul Ryan and the rest. Deep down, do they say, you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe we're better off with a Cruz or something else? Or do they say, let's just destroy him, forget about the nominee, and try and run everybody as their own? What's going on, you think, behind closed doors?
Well, Richard, I'm going to take your football analogy and use it in a different way. I think they're going to punt for the moment and see what happens later on in the game. What I thought was very interesting was that most, if not all, of the Republican incumbents in the Senate who were running, who had a primary, won their primary. So the establishment incumbent Republicans kept their seats. So those who were banging on the door of the Republican Party to get in, they lost. So that was a good thing for the establishment.
But Paul Ryan, yesterday, made it a point to go on air right before the Super Tuesday votes and said he took huge issue with Donald Trump not condemning, when given 3 opportunities with Jake Tapper, David Duke, and obviously the former Grand Wizard of the KKK. So that was a conscious decision to go after the party frontrunner. I've never seen that before.
Well, what that shows you is that they are primarily concerned, although they love America as much as Democrats do, they just happen to be going down the wrong path to get there, to save America. But they are primarily interested in holding on to the House and holding on to the Senate, number one. They'd like to get the White House. They haven't had it in 8 years. But they'd be content not to lose everything. So they'd be content to hold on to the House and hold on to the Senate. But it's too late yet, it's too early yet to know which Donald Trump is going to show up. There's a lot about him that is very disturbing, like when he says he wants to kill the families of terrorists. That's a war crime. When he wants to deport 11 million undocumented people in America, that's pretty much impossible, and everybody knows it.
Or being able to define what religion somebody is when they come to the airport. You know,
so they don't know which Donald Trump is going to show up. Is it the Donald Trump who had the Trump mortgage company that failed, the Trump shuttle, Trump vodka, Trump University, Trump magazine, Trump, all these Trump enterprises that failed.
Don't forget Trump Water, the greatest water ever on earth.
Notwithstanding his braggadocio.
I want to get to Andrew on the broker convention, the rumors, and also the options. But Dominic, do you think that's what's scaring them the most? It's not just that this is a loudmouth who, you know, is saying from the next day, from one day to the next, he's saying something crazier and getting more free publicity and it's working. Or this guy, you put him in the White House, he could pick 2 justices that are liberals for all they know. He's been on record as being pro-gay marriage. He's been on record at least at certain times as being pro-choice. We all know the rumors that in an off-the-record conversation with the Times, he said, I don't really mean what I was saying about immigration. So if you're the Republican Party here and you're the establishment, do you run the risk here that he's kind of like a Justice Kennedy, where he gets in there and he's different than what you thought? Is that what's scaring them more, you think, or just that, who the hell is this guy?
I think the Republican Party finds itself between a rock and a hard place, literally, okay? Number one, how do you stop the will of the people? Number one. All of these things that you're going through, I mean, how badly could you have categorized or dealt with this situation? Oh, we're going to wait and just watch him fizzle out. Well, it's a little too late for that. He's one step away from the nomination.
Yep.
And so I think to piggyback on the points that's been made, the party's in a difficult position. And I think their biggest fear, the Republican Party, is Donald Trump only cares about Donald Trump. Donald, we know he's not going to have any coattails. I mean, come
we'll
on,
talk about Christie. It looked like it was a hostage video yesterday.
But Richard, but to just to sum this up, He doesn't care really if Republicans lose the House, if they lose the Senate. All he cares about is if he's elected. Yeah. And you're right. God only knows what he may do.
Well, Andrew, go through, and Larry, I'll steal an extra minute if I could for this. Go through the scenarios that are being discussed right now. The hope is he doesn't have the magic number when he gets to Cleveland to the convention, being Trump. And then at that point, what really are the options for Republicans if they want to do anyone but Trump?
It's a little unclear at this point. In 2012, after Mitt Romney was sort of a weak frontrunner, the GOP changed its nomination rules. You now have to win 8 states in order to be eligible to be nominated to be the Republican nominee for president. Right now, that's Donald Trump. He's the only one who's won 8 states. Ted Cruz has won 4 states now in total. He won 3 last night. And Iowa, he might theoretically get to 4 states. But right now, that leaves 1, maybe 2 eligible people who can even be nominated from the floor. The hope is that you go through the first ballot where the delegates are basically linked to the candidate they were selected to represent.
Well, I've heard there's different theories in that, which is, for example, Iowa, they still haven't selected the delegates. And theoretically, whoever the delegates are, they're free agents.
But they're
not bound to represent
they're not in the first ballot. They're absolutely locked to the candidate they're elected to represent in the first ballot of the Republican primary. If that ends up with no candidate getting enough to be nominated as the nominee, then they go to the second ballot, and then everybody's a free agent. And then you can get all sorts of wheeling and dealing and all sorts of other machinations. But that's the technical aspect of how that works. The practical aspect of that, if you have Donald Trump who's winning 35–40% of the vote and has the lion's share of the delegates, and you go to Cleveland and you take the nomination away from him, the people who voted for Donald Trump are going to revolt. And it's going to look, especially in an anti-establishment year for the party elders, the establishment of the establishment, to come in and take the nomination away from Donald Trump, it doesn't look too good. And then I'll take it one more step. What do you think Donald Trump would do if that happened? Pretty good odds that he's going to go third party, which kills the Republican chances in November.
Speaking of killing, I'm killing Larry on timing. Just one last thing really quick. Yeah. Some are saying we're seeing the end of the Republican Party as we know it with what's happened this cycle. Is it a blip on the radar, or is it really a harbinger that we will never see after this cycle the Republican Party as at least previously constructed, the party of Reagan?
Well, I think we're going to see a very different Republican Party. We're seeing that evolve and unfold right now, and it's unclear whether it's going to be the Republican Party of Donald Trump, the Republican Party of Ted Cruz, the Republican Party of Marco Rubio, or somebody else. And the party's in flux, and it's unclear what direction the party will go in, but it is fractured, it is splintered, and there's no consensus right now around some ideological point of view, around a certain subset of issues. There really is a great deal of soul searching the party needs to do over the next few years to figure it out.
I was just thinking, do you think the Koch brothers feel that their money has been well spent so far? All right, coming up next, the battle between Trump and Hillary is already starting to shape up, but how can Hillary take the Donald down? We're starting to see what that approach is going to look like between her and the Donald.